Hey you guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. If it's your first time here, my name is Aly Wilkins. I am a priestess. I'm a teacher of the ancient feminine. I do a lot of work in the Akashic records, and this is all these things combined to really the work that I do in my mission here in the world. And that's what this channel is devoted to. So today we have a very special guest, Priscilla Campos, Queen Atlanta, and we're going to be talking about Atlantis as a civilization. So I hope that you enjoy this transmission. If you do, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, let us know what you think, what comes through for you. We would love to hear that, and share it with anyone that you think would resonate with it. All right, without further ado, enjoy this transmission today. Okay, welcome you guys. I have a very special guest today. Welcome to the channel. So we have Priscilla Campos, Queen Atlanta, here with us. And I'm so thrilled we're going to be talking about the ancient civilization of Atlantis. And if you've been on my channel for a while, you've heard me talk about Lemuria and about the Pleiadians, because that's what I'm really most connected into. And Priscilla is so knowledgeable about so many things about the Atlantean culture and just the whole ancient civilization. So we're going to go in on the questions with her today. And I highly recommend that you follow her on Instagram if you want to learn more. You can follow her at the Atlantean Priestess and the Temples of Atlantis. I'll put them in the description for you. But Priscilla, do you just want to introduce yourself first to everyone?
Yes, thank you. Blessings. My honor to be here. I never ever say no about talking about Atlantis. It's part of our soul's mission, and once you know your soul mission, I think it just comes out. So fair warning. What I've been told is I share a lot of information in a very little bit amount of time. Don't get overwhelmed. Take what resonates, sit with what doesn't. And then just know that most likely, 99% chance that if you're here on this planet today, you have had a lifetime in Atlantis. Hopefully you experienced the Golden Era, which is where I really am anchored to. If your experience is more of the fall of Atlantis, which I'm sure we'll get into, then know that you will come into healing. And once you come through that healing, that transformation, your life will up level, because your experience in Atlantis directly affects what you're experiencing now. And that's why ancient civilizations should never be disregarded. Although the other disclaimer is mostly what you have learned in school is inaccurate. And the biggest thing that I like to remind people of is that myths, things that are relegated to myths in this realm, is actually the truth. And it goes back to the deepest of stories and layers. And those things that we're taught as facts is usually the illusion. And once you can come into that awareness through your spiritual awakening, then you can come to more of the truth of you. And of course, the biggest truth that I've really learned from Queen Atlanta is the more your authentic self, which has to do with your ancient soul, the more things will come in alignment, and the less initiations you'll have to go to that really bring you to your knees. Things will become easier and more beautiful. And you'll have more gratitude for the lessons and the challenges. So an honor to be here. I have a feeling that Queen Atlanta's energy will take over. For those of you that can see, I always wear my jewelry anyways, but the one I'm wearing here is very special to me. His name is Atlan. Atlan is my personal recorder from Atlantis. I've had him for 40,000 years. His soul has come back to me in the form of this crystal, which is an Atlantean spinel. And he has recorded not only my own experiences, but everybody that I was surrounded by, that I was loved by, that I loved in return. And so he's really an encyclopedia of information. So as I say that, he's buzzing in my head right now. And he really has the deep blue ray, almost like a Syrian ray. So if you feel that energy coming through you and you get any downloads, I encourage you to pause, reflect, and perhaps journal. Because it's about to get wild in here. Atlantis is coming back. So So anxious to start. Thank you so much, Aly.
I'm just smiling ear to ear because right before you started talking about Atlan,
Mm,
I was like, I'm feeling this blue ray coming through my body, and like down through my feet and then kind of pouring out like an ocean wave or something. So I just
mhm.
love when you have that confirmation. So anyways, thank you for sharing that. So this obviously could be a really large conversation. I think just to start, for anyone who's new to the conversation around Atlantis, how would you explain this civilization just as a beginner for a beginner's ears?
Um, the Atlantean civilization to me spans about 3.5 million years ago to where we are now. So everything that we're currently experiencing right now in in the 2020s is either directly an influence from Atlantis or an offshoot of Lemuria. And so both of those places together, they're a frequency of an enlightenment, of love, of a deep connection to Gaia, of understanding the sacredness and the potential of water as a key holder, as a memory, as an activator. And both are really about the human spirit being unified with Christ consciousness and understanding that we've never been alone in the galaxy. So if we just look at Atlantis as a model and we understand that people call it a lost city or a sunken city, or people think, oh, I found Atlantis here. Atlantis is over here. Atlantis is the master civilization located in the Atlantic Ocean on a series of islands. But like every other civilization on the earth that grows and expands a lot, it ends up really covering the whole world. And so the buildings and the cities of Atlantis are built in concentric circles because it's an homage to the divine feminine. Okay, so you have circular energy, womb energy, spherical energy mixed with pyramid energy that connects you to the cosmos. So it's like a center island and then a ring of water and then a ring of land and then a ring of water. And this model is then replicated all over the world, including Antarctica and the Sahara Desert and places in the Mayas. And so people are like, well, Priscilla, they found Atlantis. I'm like, well, of course they found Atlantis. It's literally all over the world. But during the Golden Era, we achieved things that have yet to be replicated on Earth since. Um, Atlantis is not shy in the same way that Queen Atlanta is not shy. It's the most grandiose you can think of. So, whatever you could picture as the most beautiful, royal, regal, incredible, awe-striking monuments and statues and buildings. Every building is built to aesthetically please you, to bring peace, to bring love, to bring awakening. And the music that's naturally emits throughout Atlantis is angelic harmonies. There's nothing that's disruptive or sticky in your field. It feels like a mother's love. It feels like safety and security and enjoyment. And so, the Atlanteans live very long time in their bodies. I'd say like a short lifetime in Atlantis might be like 3,000 years in one incarnation. But if you're in a span of a 20,000 year incarnation, imagine what you can accomplish, imagine what you can master. And so if we're talking about priestess energy, you might train to be a priestess for 5,000 years before you get, you know, apprenticed into the next level, being a high priestess. Like it's just this beautiful energy. And besides that, the things again we see as myths now, like dragons and griffins and unicorns and Pegasuses, these were our companions and our protectors and our teachers in Atlantis. So everything is possible at that time, and it has a deep connection to Lemuria, right? Lemuria in many ways is Atlantis's mother, and it has a deep connection to the star nations. And so it's the epitome of what can be achieved if we understand we're of God, that we're one together, and that when we care for one another is how you actually build a civilization. And that's why it's a matriarchal civilization, because no one, literally no one is left behind. Um, when I connect to Queen Atlanta and I ask her questions, the biggest thing about her being queen at that time, everybody was heard, everybody was seen, everybody was loved, and everybody was cared for. And the way that she loves the elderly and children and dogs and horses, and the list goes on. There's nothing that's above anything else. It's students are sorry, kids are our teachers, dogs are our teachers, unicorns are our teachers, dolphins are our teachers. Someone that's 20,000 years old is our teacher. The Arcturian is. So it's like a mass university that never stops growing. And it's so, so, so beautiful. And that's one of the reasons why it's hidden and relegated as myth, is because if we understand what we're truly capable of, then we won't accept what's currently happening in our world. And that's the reason why they have to hide it and erase it from the books and pretend it never existed. But the one thing I can stress is indeed it has. And it kind of exists in a more tangible form in some ways than Lemuria, because Lemuria comes before it. And so our collective consciousness is almost stuck on the fall of Atlantis, that a lot of us can't see golden Atlantis, nor can we see golden Lemuria, because we're stuck in the trauma. We all have like post-traumatic stress disorder from like 12,000 years ago that we just keep reliving. So that's like the Cole's notes, I think. Here's Guide on Atlantis. Hopefully you have a little bit of an understanding.
Thank you. That was beautiful. And I learned a lot just in that explanation. So, there's so many places we could go just from that. What do you see as, like, let's talk about the two different aspects you've already mentioned, the Golden Atlantis and the Fall of Atlantis. Because I know for me, I really resonate. Like, I remember the fall of Atlantis. I don't remember the golden part. And I remember um being in Lemuria and being taken to Atlantis in that second.
Mm.
And that's, I have like lots of lifetimes that I remember that. So is there anything you want to share just around that that comes up for you?
Number one, I want to apologize because Queen Atlanta would never, ever want anyone to experience that. And what happened? So I think a lot of books will say the golden era lasted for 1,500 years, and I just can't wrap my head around that. I just don't believe that at all. I think the golden era, you build up to it, you're in it, and then you fall down from it. But I really think it was there for a very, very long time, and by that I mean like 5 to 10,000 years in my memory. When it's in the golden era, there is no distrust that the Lemurians have of Atlantis. It is like, it's kind of like Canada and the USA. We're connected. We don't know everything about each other, but in the end, you have each other's back because you can't, in some ways, you can't even defer. If you just look at a Canadian American, for the most part, you don't know who's who, right? It's just how it is. And so like I said, Lemuria is this great teacher of Atlantis. And so in the golden era, we have this beautiful connection to the divine feminine. We honor Earth. We understand that we can't take from her. And it's what we all dream of, right? We want to live in this utopia, and we are going to get there again. But what ends up happening, from what I've read, studied, researched, and actually lived in, is we get a negative entity, energy from outside of our realm. And basically, it's kind of blamed on the Martians, with some AI, with the Luciferian rebellion, with some negative grays. But they're looking for how can they infiltrate Earth, and they're basically looking at Earth like a scope, like a library. What's the perfect point for us to enter? Because we have to think about time is very malleable, right? When they spot Golden Atlantis, they're like, yes, because these people are powerful. They're working with crystals. They're talking to the cosmos. These guys are going to think that we're gods, and we're going to come down and we're going to teach them how things are. Now, we want to take this set and really see it as a very toxic masculine, okay, something that's still pervaded our current culture. And the way it's said is that think about a 65-year-old man preying on a 14-year-old girl. That's that energy of Atlantis. So it's just like she's just blossoming. She doesn't even quite know her full potential. It's unlimited. She's coming into her womanhood. She's starting to draw more attention, whether she likes it or not. And when these negative beings come in, through years, through 5,000, through 10,000 years, they end up spiritually raping the Atlanteans. And what is said is that per Atlantean that goes through this, 20 to 100 negative entities invade them. And when that happens, it's like their light is diminished. It's not that it goes out, but from being this incredible, perhaps golden orb, it gets vacuumed in into a little pinpoint. And they become automatons, and the light from their eyes fades out and they become very hard. And now instead of honoring women and honoring the system of giving and receiving, they become in more take mode. And all it takes really is one person to start being greedy, which is said happened in the Magi. The Magi is also known as the black magic of Atlantis, which ends up infiltrating Egypt, Rome, Germany, everywhere our world is. But it's like they didn't have a chance. And now I've done many, many Akashic readings, and I've met many powerful Atlanteans, and I've seen these battles come over. And actually what I've witnessed from those battles is that a lot of the homeless people we have on our planet now, a lot of people that are born into alcoholic drug situations, abusive situations, those are the fallen Atlanteans, in particular men. They are fallen soldiers from Atlantis, and their soul has been broken in a way. So we have this takeover of Atlantis, and it doesn't happen in the blink of an eye. It happens over thousands of years, almost so that's not detectable. And eventually the schools begin to teach different forms. There's the Sons of One, as Edgar Cayce has channeled. The Sons of One is those that believe in one God, one source, that we're all one oversoul, that whatever I do affects you. Then there's the Sons of Belial, right? Baal. Baal's still present in this world, still creating a lot of problems. Belial or Baal promises them the world. If you just do this, we'll give you more power. We'll give you more knowledge. And those people that perhaps weren't confident, maybe they failed their apprenticeship. I don't know. They're just more vulnerable. They cling to that. And now Atlantis, instead of everyone sharing in its riches, it becomes how it is now, right? This is mine. I wear these jewels because I'm powerful. Nobody else can have them. That's not the way it's supposed to be. And so there's this struggle. And the struggle happens, like I said, over thousands of years. And eventually, those that stayed in the light understood that we were not going to save Atlantis. And so Tahat, Queen Atlanta, Osiris, Isis, many of the kings and queens begin to make plans to make sure that Atlantis lives on, not because Atlantis itself is important as the state, but Atlantis's knowledge and its frequency and its consciousness is important. So they first export it to Egypt, to Kem. And I was saying is Egypt is known to be the daughter of Atlantis. It's the first colony of Atlantis, which is why it's so radiant and powerful now. But then from there, they go throughout the Mediterranean Sea, so it's like Greece and Italy and Spain and Turkey and Persia and all these places. They go to the Incas, right, to South America, to North America. They create the Mayas. They create Avalon. They create the Norse mythology. They create all these things around to make sure that things live on. And so Atlantis, again, is never lost. It is hidden in some ways, and it gets forgotten. Now, when that final battle comes, I haven't seen it to understand what actually sinks Atlantis. A lot of times people say, well, God punished, the sea god punished, Poseidon punished. I just think it was its time. And everything is, nothing is by accident, everything's by design. And so Atlantis had its heyday, but now it was time for new ways to come about. And really in the cycle of Earth, which we're been learning that it's a 26,000 year cycle, 13,000 of those years is going to be building from the bottom, which is the fall of Atlantis, back up to the Golden Era. And then once you've been there for a while, the next 13,000 years will fall down from the Golden Era and hit something at the bottom. So it's just the way that it is. But regardless, Atlantis itself, the main island known as Poseidia or Undal, sinks, it takes Mount Atlas down with it. Mount Atlas was the tallest peak in all of the world. Is actually where the letter A is said to come from. A represents Mount Atlas being so tall that the cross where the A is the clouds, that you can't even see the top of it. And so Mount Atlas is like it's like a pinpoint of Earth where others come to. And when it falls, now people don't know what's happening on Earth. Where's Atlas? Atlas is the protector. Atlas is the father of the Pleiadians, right? What's happening? And things begin to crumble and degenerate. Now, they don't happen again overnight. Egypt itself is probably reborn as Kem 30,000 years ago. It hits its heyday around 12 to 10,000 years ago. And from there, it's a steady decline into what they call the Golden Era of Egypt, which is like 4,000 years ago. But that's actually 25 steps down from where it was, So, of course, there's much more than that, but that again is a gist of this beautiful golden era and how low things sunk to get to the bottom of the fall.
That's so interesting because, first of all, I think it's interesting that both of us have gold on today.
Always.
Like, almost as an homage. I don't wear gold all the time, so this is like meaningful for me.
Mhm.
Because like I was saying, I haven't had that remembrance of the golden age of Atlantis. And the way that I've remembered it is more of like, okay, I see Lemuria as being very feminine. And then my memory of Atlantis is very masculine, but like cold and actually like in color, like gray and just hard and rigid. And so the way that you explained that really makes sense that that's just the second portion of
Yeah,
that
it is,
station.
and it's the toxic masculine, and it's actually what we see now because Atlantis would never have cubes. We would never have rectangles and flat roofs. What? Never. And then what do we see in our world now? Everything's in boxes because it's uninspiring, because it's like in some ways it's a prison, whereas the divine feminine form of the circle is never ending. There's no beginning, there's no end. It's just whole in its being. And so Atlantis would have domes and circular temples. And yes, it would have some pyramids because the pyramids are the connection to the divine. Um, but it is a very matriarchal society, and almost to the point where women are literally worshipped as goddesses, as living goddesses on the planet. And very much, I think, in the same way that Lemurian women were seen. So to come from that to where now the fall of Atlantis, where women are being insulted, assaulted, enslaved, beaten, prostituted, it's where our foundation is broken. And it's what many women, again, that would be suffering from sexual abuse in their family history, alcoholism, drug abuse. We could see those as fallen priestesses from Atlantis, and not fallen their choice. It's not that they chose the darkness, but again, imagine if any of you have had any kind of negative entity experience, you know how pesting they are and how hard it is to get rid of them. So imagine 100 extraterrestrial negative entities within you, scrambling your brain, making you question everything. So for those priestesses from Lemuria that were taken, kidnapped, experimented on, that's not the true Atlanteans that are doing that. That's an Atlantean with like an Orion Martian gray mix of someone that doesn't care about anything, right? They actually try to murder the divine feminine on Earth, which they've been trying to do for a very long time. So I hold a lot of compassion because I know in particular a lot of students, women that I've seen online that I've had master classes with, there is this sense of betrayal. There's a sense of fear of coming out again as a priestess, of bringing forth your practices, that you will be shunned, that you will be betrayed. There is a division in partnership of why a lot of women perhaps don't trust the divine masculine because they've had these very triggering experiences. But that's why it's so important that we go through the healing and the healing of our dark night of the soul and acknowledge that it's just one experience your soul has had and it wanted that experience. And how can you use it to be a more enlightened, compassionate, loving being? now. That's the biggest lesson of Atlantis. Whether you had a great experience or you had a terrible experience, how does it relate to your life now, and how can you use it as an anchor to bring forward your work, and hopefully a lot of love.
Yes, and I also just want to add in because I can like feel someone watching this who's thinking about this. Even just accessing our gifts. I know for so long for me, I was doing things mostly just smoking a lot of weed to like dull my senses and to have literally like a cloud of smoke around me so that I wasn't able to perceive all the things that I was actually very gifted in being able to see. And I see so many people coming to me with similar like self-sabotaging tactics, but really they're rooted in this fear of having their gifts because, well, if I see my gifts, then I have to do something with them. And then if I do something with them, I could be hurt. And we're talking about thousands and thousands of years ago, but even that has continued on in the last 1,500 years. And that's a lot of what I teach around the last 2,000 years specifically. So, I just want to speak to whoever it is that was thinking that, who's watching this, because even if you're not utilizing the terminology around being a priestess, it might be something even like, far before that, even just in accessing your gifts themselves. So, I also wanted to ask you, Priscilla, do you feel or not like, are there any specific star lineages that are most connected with Atlantis? You've already talked about like like Orion, but not so much in a great way, or Sirius.
Yeah, I will preface by saying Orions get a really bad rap. So, there's a-hole humans. We know there is. If an alien meant an a-hole human, they'd be like, "Oh, those guys are just all jerks like that." It's not true. There's some great Orions as well, because I teach about the great eight of Orions, the eight stars within there, and they're fantastic beings. Um, because Atlantis is such in that way like a melting pot, it's extensive, but I will go into maybe like eight major ones. The Lyrans, of course. The Lyrians are the father energy of our universe, as far as my downloads have come through. That's where we get the sacred lion beings. That's actually where Sekhmet comes from, and Sekhmet is a glorious queen and high priestess of Atlantis. They're really to teach us about the secrets of the universe, but how to be courageous and live in integrity. So that's what they were showing the Atlanteans. And at the same time, they were really helping them build magnificent structures that would honor all of creation. And so you're going to, in Atlantis, lions are going to be very, very honored, worshiped, lots of statues, lots of sphinxes in those forms. The Orions themselves, absolutely. Orion's big. We have Bellatrix, Betelgeuse, Elni-Tak, Elni-Lem, and the Mintakans, Saif, Maisa, the Rigelians. They all play a part. But what the Orions show us is really about honoring your sacred warrior. That at some time you're going to have to stand up to the darkness, and to do that, you're going to have to build your form in strength, both your soul, your mental capacities, and your physical body has to be strong. And so they showed us about really caring for ourselves, building ourselves, understanding that Earth's place in the larger galaxy is very important. And they kind of served as our protectors and our guardians. And to be honest, in one of my earlier forms as Queen Atlanta, meaning in her younger days, which let's say her younger days around when she's about 10,000 years old, she marries an Orion king. I believe him to be from Betelgeuse. And it's a peace offering. It's a way to protect Earth, but to also like marry any tensions, because we know that there's negative Orions as well. So there's a union there. The Andromedans teach us about sovereignty, about the divine feminine, about honoring the goddess body. The Palladians, of course, are very heart-centered. The Arcturians and the Polarians teach us about crystals. And I'd say the other one that's very major, and I'm sorry if I'm missing any, but sorry, Sirius, definitely Sirius. Okay, they want me to stop. Really important that I say Sirius, because Sirius, of course, is where our dolphin master teachers come from, the unicorns, the Pegasuses, the dogs, the cats. Oh, they're going to go on. Literally almost everything comes from Sirius. And then aside from that, also the Alpha Centaurians. The Alpha Centaurians are masters at the Golden Ray. And so they teach the Atlanteans how to use the gift of source in terms of our sun, how to not only use it to amplify, our food making abilities, but how to power up crystals, how to power up our own inner energetic bodies, how we cleanse ourselves, how we activate ourselves. So they're all incredible teachers, and that's why it's like this in and out. And if we could bring ourselves back to golden Atlantis, it would probably look like what we think ancient Egypt and the gods and goddesses look like. You're going to see beings that are not necessarily humanoids, but lion-headed people and bird-headed people and dog-headed people, and none of them are being imprisoned. It's like, I don't know. I guess it's like sometimes if you go to Europe, you know how like there's just so many different people in Europe, but then they come to one location and there's like 20 different languages, but they all understand each other. Like it's that kind of beauty. Um, so there's so much. They're saying like there's add another 20 to that of the influence on Atlantis. And that's why like Atlantis raises Earth to be like um, a stop, a stop on the galaxy. So people are no longer just sailing past Earth, like, oh, those guys aren't ready. They're like, oh, what's this? And it just becomes this incredible place of healing and enlightenment. And it's known to be really open because humans in general are very ingenious and very, very open to new concepts in general, right? That's where we're coming back to. So the galactic community loves Atlantis, and some of the temples of healing rival some of the greatest temples of healing in Sirius and Arcturus. So very special times that we were there, and definitely coming back to.
Mm, beautiful. I would love you guys watching this if already from what we've shared. I'm sure that there's been multiple things that have just like struck you. If you want to share any of those things, I'd love for you to put those in the comments and just
Absolutely.
um share whatever's coming up for you, because I'm sure there's some aspect of remembrance or something that's just kind of like, tugging on your heart as you listen to this, because I know there's a lot of that for me. And I'm just kind of seeing, oh, Atlantis is so much larger than I really understood it to be. Um, I
It
would
is
love,
the whole world. It is the whole world, minus the parts that were Lemurian. So anything around the Pacific Ocean is highly influenced by Lemuria. Anything around the Atlantic Ocean is going to be very Atlantean. And then in those continents that have both of them, like North and South America, then you have the integration of both. And that's what makes places like the Mayas so and the Incas so incredibly powerful, because now you have the genuine love and care for the earth that the Lemurians had with that want to know more, to do more that the Atlanteans have. And so you have places that are made like Machu Picchu, like these temples of the sun, the temple of the jaguar, like these incredible places um, that marry both. And that's why it's so beautiful. And those that now directly have lineage, perhaps from Central America, you're carrying in your DNA legit Atlantean and Lemurian energies, and you're here for a special reason. So um, it's really incredible. I can't pull it down right now, but I bought a puzzle at Toys R Us last year on Atlantis, and I was like, what is this? And it literally had Valhalla on it, Egyptus. Like it literally showed the whole world as it relates to Atlantis. I'm like, did somebody make this puzzle for me? Like, what is it? But if you think about the Greek civilization or the Romans, when they really expand and they like take over a lot of Europe plus into Asia, we want to see that as Atlantis, but not in a way of conquering. It's in a way of sharing information. The queens and kings know that their citizens are living such incredible lives, but then they begin to wonder, how is the rest of the world living? We have to get off of our bubble and we need to start helping more people. And so as they spread out and bring their knowledge, they're bringing astronomy, astrology, crystal technology, metaphysics, sacred geometry, writing, poetry, healing, sound healing. They're the great teachers that get relegated as gods and goddesses, but they're not gods and goddesses. They're real people from Atlantis that just wanted to help. And they appeared as immortal, because they're living again over 10,000 years in general, because they have that higher consciousness. That's why they're immortal, because they're not living fully in their earth bodies. They're that perfect blend of humanity with spirit. So it does cover the whole world. And when Lemuria eventually kind of fades out, or it has its golden era and it kind of starts to fall down, then Atlantis literally takes over the world in a great way for a long time until the tides turn, and then it becomes very aggressive and very a-hole-ish and causes a lot of grief, unfortunately.
So I'm really curious from the aspect of understanding the golden age of Atlantis,
Mhm.
how do you see the differences or like the specific flavors, if you will, between Lemuria and then the golden age of Atlantis? Like, how are they distinct from each other other than just location?
I think when I think of Lemuria, I think of it as more pure and more basic in the most beautiful of ways. Atlantis gets, if I think about Queen Atlanta, right? And really she does. She has all the jewels and the biggest headdresses and the most beautiful, gowns and all these things. There's like this regalness to it. And that's wonderful. But Queen Atlanta also goes to Lemuria to just be, right? So when she doesn't have to be the queen over there. I mean, she's still the queen, but she doesn't have to take everyone, hold space for everyone. So when she goes to Lemuria, she literally lets her hair down and takes off most of her jewels and dresses in a very simple way and sings and harmonizes with earth and goes for swims and takes long naps in the sun. And it's like this state of just being. You don't have to want for anything else than just to thank Gaia for the fruit in your hand, take a big juicy bite to go swim with the dolphins and call it a day. It's like Lemuria to me teaches souls who Earth is, who Gaia is. And that's why a lot of us will have entry points to Lemuria first before we go through any of the other civilizations. Because we have to understand, well, who am I going to be living on? What's this mother like? What's this womb space like? And through the Lemurians, you learn the absolute beauty and variety of Earth. I've done so much astral traveling over the last 5 years. And what I want to say about Earth, it's one of the most diverse realms out there. There's beautiful realms that are, all forest or all ocean or all mountains or all desert. And yet Earth takes a little bit from all of them and creates it in one space. And that in itself, you can investigate for millions upon millions of years, which we do as souls. So Lemuria is just like the teacher, the grandmother, the most nurturing energy, that space that holds space for you over and over and over again. But when even some of the Lemurians, when they're like, I like this peaceful life, but I want something more. What else can I do? Then they kind of come to the university over in Atlantis and like, oh, what do you mean? I didn't know there was polarians. What does this crystal do? How does this work? Like it just brings it in a different wave. One is not better than the other. They're just different and they complement each other. And that's why to me, they're really sacred friends. Now, in my time as Queen Atlanta on a visit to Lemuria, and I've seen this and I really love this moment in my history. But I'm married to a king of Orion at this time, and I have a son with him. And I see my now husband in Lemuria. So I went to go visit some priestess sisters. I'm kind of on vacation, enjoying myself. And when my soul locks eyes on my husband, in my head, I say, his soul was created for me. And I immediately divorce my Orion husband and I marry this man I just met within 3 days. And I said, me and you are going to be together forever. And we're going to help bring more unity to this planet. Not that it was in disrepair at that time. Maybe it was just kind of separate. And I laugh at myself because that's exactly how I approached him in this lifetime. I locked that man down in 3 days from when I kissed him to like, that's it. We are together forever. So the soul doesn't lie, but that's one of the gifts for me of Lemuria that's lasting on this planet is, as astral and as cosmic as I am, my husband is the direct representation of Earth. So I can do all my magic stuff on retreats and go to Egypt and fly with Horus and fly on a dragon and do all these things. But when I come back to him, he grounds me. And that's what Lemurians do. Great. You've been in the astral realm. Awesome. You've been on Arcturus. Incredible. But guess what? You're also of Earth, and it's time to come sit on the grass and breathe the fresh air and just be. And I'm like, ah. So to me, he encompasses the energy of Lemuria, which is like, remember who you are, why you chose this form, and don't forget to connect with your Earth Mother, right? So many of us, um, so many Canadians, especially because of our weather in the winter, we go from box to box. We go from the house directly into our vehicle, directly into a building. We don't interact. And Gaia is the piece. She's the reminder of why you came here. One of the reasons you came here is to experience the elementals and the elements and her magic. So Lemuria definitely lives on, and as much as Atlantis is rising, of course Lemuria is rising because we can't. What I said in the beginning, and I think I said, is Atlantis can't exist without Lemuria, right? So if Atlantis is coming back, good news, Lemurian friends. Lemuria is coming back, and it's never left. It's in Hawaii, it's in Fiji, it's in Bali, it's in Australia, it's in New Zealand, it's in China, it's in Japan, right? It's on the western coast of North America and South America. It's just waiting for us to come into that consciousness. And I'm sure those beautiful Lemurians that are hiding out in Mount Shasta eventually are going to want to come to the surface when it's time, and they're going to teach us what we've forgotten. It's as always what I say, it's a good time. As hard as it seems, um, and I know not everybody is living the life, but it's a good time to be here. It's a far better time than it has been in the last 12,000 years, that's for sure.
Mm. Thank you for that beautiful distinction. That was everything I ever wanted it to be. I understand. I can really feel the distinction between those. So you said that beautifully.
Thank you.
There's one more question that I want to ask you around, how our modern civilization is reflecting Atlantis and how we're facing some of the same like trigger points, if you will, or some of the same important climactic decisions
Mhm.
that are reflecting some of those that may have happened in Atlantis. What are your thoughts or your viewpoints about that?
Um, so as much as the beauty and the golden ray of Atlantis has endured and put itself in temple inscriptions and in pyramids and megalithic places all over the world, the other part that's endured is the darkness. And so those same beings that infiltrated 30,000-ish years ago weave their way through society, like I said, to Egypt, to Rome, and continue to live now. So our focus on materialism, on distractions, there's a great saying that's from the Roman era. If you just give them circuses and bread, they'll never revolt. What do we think? What do we think our Colosseums are now? It's the NFL, it's the NBA, it's World Cup soccer, it's politicians, it's celebrities. So all those same facets still exist. But what we'll notice, especially since 2020, is now people are starting to move away from that. I'm a big NBA fan myself, but I just see it with so much more clarity. And I understand that it's trying to distract me, which is why I don't get pulled into it. Um, but the things that we're really frustrated by now, over government reach, poisoning our food, poisoning our water, those are all built up like a snowball effect from that fall of Atlantis. The things that are hidden that are beautiful are the things that you can really only discover through your spiritual awakening, because they're not going to show you. Nobody is going to spoon fed you. Nobody's going to give you what you need to know because they don't want us to know, because that would empower us. So Atlantis is literally like in every book, in every civilization. It's just not, there's at least minimum 30 different names for Atlantis. The ones that are ATL, ADL, you will get to know and you will recognize them. But because there's so many different languages, it really varies. But if you look into the history of any of the Mediterranean people, most people from Northern Africa and most of Europe, they will say that they came through their literature that they came from an island in the West. That's Atlantis, right? For us in North America and South America, it'd be an island in the East. But it's really funny. I'm reading a book right now. It's one of the best books on Atlantis. It's an original book. It's by Ignatius Donnelly. It gets quoted all the time in any kind of modern book. And just yesterday, I was reading how circumcision comes from Atlantis. And you're like, what? Things that you can't even fathom, things that are so ordinary for us. The history is far beyond 6,000 years, 8,000 years. The history is 30,000, 50,000, a million years ago. So one of the best ways, to find out about ancient civilizations is to read books, especially that ones that are written before 1950. Like you can get books that are written from about 1850 to 1950. You're getting things that haven't yet been deleted out of history at that time. But you read them because everything is basically a channeling, right, in some way or form. I find it funny is that male authors that write on Atlantis always talk about the numbers and the history, and they'll always point out this is what was happening in Ethiopia. This is what the Spaniards say that like, and they have very detailed, and it's great. The female authors will always be channeled oracular work of feelings and emotions and past life types of things. So together they make this really incredible picture. But when you're reading about it, you don't have to accept it all. You just see what feels good, and you close your eyes and you ask your soul, if I am to know something about this, if I was there, show me something I need to remember. And your soul will. Your ego will deny you, right? And say that's not real. You're making it up. But take lessons if you can, because at first I tried to push Atlantis away because I thought that was ridiculous. I don't want to look into some sunken city. I don't care about some sunken city. I'm good. And literally my guys are like, Priscilla, why do you think you love Egypt and Greece so much? I'm like, I don't know. Because I was there. They're like, yes, but why were you there? I'm like, I don't know. They're like, exactly. Read about Atlantis and you will know. So the information is there for us. I know it's been hidden, but it is still there. Antique books are a really great way to find it out. And then to do your own exploration with your soul. I use crystals a lot. They really help me remember and anchor into the frequency of my soul. But everyone's a little bit different. For some of you, you might have flashes. Maybe you're really good with different herbs. Maybe you're like this wonderful alchemist and you're mixing something. And then you have a flash of a knowingness of doing this before. Your soul is trying to show you what your code is, what you're here for. So everything can awaken you. And in particular, of course, the Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea, those places for Atlantis will awaken you. The Pacific Ocean will really help awaken you to your Lemurian side. But one of my takeaways from Egypt, one of my favorite takeaways, was a vision I had. I went to see the Giza Plateau twice, and the second one was at the end of my trip. And I was by these they're very worn out statues that I would call Atlantides, very similar to what's in Mexico, just outside of Mexico City. They're behind the Sphinx. And when I went to be in that portal of those four things, they showed me some incredible stuff. One of them, they said, one of the most beautiful things that brought tears to my eyes was that Atlantis was never destroyed because it was never meant to be destroyed. Yes, the buildings are gone, but the knowledge is not. And they literally showed Queen Atlanta helping to hold back the waves before Atlantis was swallowed up. And she took this golden pod, and it would be quite big and arrow shaped at the bottom, and she planted it at the bottom of the ocean. And that the moment she planted it, it started to seed. And over the last 12,000 years, that seed has grown into a tree of knowledge once again. And so she's like, everyone thinks in such linear terms of here and not 3D, 5D. She's like, you think it's like, it's so black and white. She's like, but it's not. Everything just continues on in different ways. So Atlantis didn't lose itself. It just needed to go beyond where it was. And in some ways, you have to kind of it's like you have to let the child experience life. You can't show them everything, right? You can't teach them everything. They have to learn things on their own. So humanity experienced the golden era, but it had to experience the opposite of that to really understand who we are, so that when we come back to it, this time there ain't no room for dark entities to take us over. We'll be like, not so fast, Satan. We we've seen this movie before. We're not going down that path. You can't come in. Sorry. So um it's a great path, and there's so many ways to find out more, but listen to your soul. It doesn't have to be about Atlantis. For you, it could be Avalon. It might be that you're very Andromedan. You might love Japan, but figure out what's the common point and why you have to go there. And then if you can, travel there. That's the best way to awaken yourself, right? And Aly knows she's planning on doing this wonderful world tour. Each ancient land has its own codes. And if you take your socks and your shoes off and you walk barefoot and you just allow yourself to be, my oh my, will the downloads come in? I'm sorry, I'm getting a download right now because my head is just buzzing, buzzing. Sorry.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So you
Thank
guys can see that Priscilla and Queen Atlanta have so much to share. On her Instagram page, on both Instagram pages, which I'll put them here so you can follow her. There's so much information. Priscilla, do you want to also just share with people how they can work with you or anything upcoming that you have that you're
thank
offering?
you. Um, so I love doing right now virtually. I do one-on-one Atlantean Akashic activations. So it is an Akashic reading. What I love with my soul is that it really loves connecting with other people's souls, and it's whatever your soul wants you to know at that point. But I'm very skilled at reading into the galactic records because I have a large awareness of a lot of different star nations. So it can go ancient civilizations on Earth, it can go ancient civilizations in the cosmos. In likeness, it also includes any type of activations, tonings, healings that you need. So it's a 1 hour session. I see great growth with my clients that, maybe get one about 3 to 4 times a year. Once a season is a great way to do that. Um, that's a great way just to feel me out and see if it feels like a good fit for you. If you like that, then I encourage you to come into one of my programs or courses. Something I'm excited about, I've been teaching Starseed Awakenings, different series for the last 3 years, and I've taught about over 35 different star nations. And I've decided to put them on my new, I'm using Kajabi going forward, and I decided to make a whole library of it. So for those of you that are star seeds, you're like, I need to know more about the Alpha Centaurians, and some that are just, not as popular as the Arcturians and the Pleiadians. That's a great place for some self-study. And then Cosmic Conscious Reiki. I love Cosmic Conscious Reiki. It's downloaded to me from my Arcturian guide, whose name is Raphael. And it's the foundation of Usui Reiki in combination with healing techniques from the Arcturians, the Pleiadians, and the Syrians. And it's a 9-month certification program with 3 intense weekends of training and a lot of support in between. It's the first year that I ran it online was last year, and I can't say enough about my incredible students and how much change they've gone under. And then lastly, if you like all those things and you would love to meet in person, then my favorite way to do that is through retreats. This year on my agenda, I have a Lemurian-based retreat with one of my sisters on Vancouver Island. And Vancouver Island, being on the west coast of Canada, is one of those beautiful spaces that holds Lemurian energy. That's June 6th to the 9th. In September, I have a tour of Greece, perhaps of Turkey. It's called the Atlantean Awakening. We'll be going through as much of the pantheon as we can. I have that kind of soul that I like to see it all. I like to teach it all. So whatever I can fit in that time, we'll be going to Delphi, definitely lots of places around Athens. I've been to Greece several times, so I really have my footing there now, but it's open to men and women, open heart, open mind. I always give education before we go. So it'll be like a 6-week course that'll help you be in those energies. And then in November of this year, we'll be doing our journey our journey through Aztlan. Aztlan is the Mayan name for Atlantis. And so we're going to be going through Mexico, Belize, and Guatemala um, for a period of about 7 to 10 days, as much as we can again see in that time frame, and visiting the temples and just remembering, man, have we been here before? It's always sacred remembrance, even though it might seem I'm teaching you something new. It's not. Your soul knows it, and that's why hopefully through this podcast you're understanding that it's just familiar. You just have to do a little bit more work, a little bit more digging or research or meditation, and you'll come to see the bigger picture. So all of that, like the best way to reach me right now is Instagram, Temples of Atlantis or the Atlantean Priestess. But also I'll have my Kajabi site up and running right away. Templesofatlantis.ca is where most of my stuff has lived before and will come back again. As Ali knows, I said I just got back from Egypt not too long ago. And Egypt really changes a lot of things. So it wanted to uproot my business a bit, and I'm in that flow, and it's okay. But soon I will emerge in a wonderful way. And I really do believe that this year is going to be very expansive and abundant for many. So even if you think, man, I'd like to go to Greece with her, but there's no way I can go, there's no way I can afford it. The best advice for this year is to shed all disbelief, all pain from the past, and to know that everything is possible. And if it's meant for you, you will find yourself there. And I'll get to stick my crystals on you, and we'll be singing hymns of great Atlantis to Poseidon, and it'll be a journey in itself.
Those all sound so amazing. And Priscilla also has, I don't know if you have anything coming up around this, we didn't talk about it, but she also has free master classes sometimes so that
Mhm.
you can get into her frequency. And I've done, I think one or two of them. And I've remembered in some of the meditations she led different aspects of lifetimes that I've had in Atlantis that I hadn't accessed before. So you
Yes.
can also, like, if you follow her on Instagram, stay tuned for those things as well, because they're very valuable. And that can also give you kind of a taste of her work.
Yes,
So
they will be coming back in February. I'm gonna this Canadian needs to leave Canada for a while and get some sun and some warmth. So Mexico's calling. And always when I'm there, I'm on the western coast when I go there. There's very beautiful Lemurian energies, and they always reset and ground me for the year. So I love going to Mexico every time at this time of year. And then I usually come back with fresh ideas and what I want to teach and what I want to share. So if you're listening to this and there's anything you're really interested in, and maybe you've gone through some of my stuff, and you're like, man, I wish I knew more about this, let me know. I'd love to hear. I'm a teacher at heart, so it's my joy to research things, to meditate on them, and then to teach others. It's so fun.
it is. Thank you so much for coming here today and for sharing your wisdom and your guidance and your heart with all of us. You guys give Priscilla some love in the comments. Make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. And share it with anyone that you know that is feeling called towards Atlantis because there was so many gems in this and everything that she shared today. So
Thank
deep
you.
gratitude for you for being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Blessings.
All right, I hope that you guys loved this video as much as I did. Thank you so much, Priscilla, for coming on to the channel this week. And I would love to hear from you guys what you learned, what, changed in your perspectives about how you see Atlantis. And your comments really let me know like what you want more of on the channel. So please always share what you think, what you liked about it, what shifted for you. And if you're new to me, I would love to offer you a free gift. To support you in anchoring in some of the Lemurian energy, which is more of like my mastery, my specialty. I have a free gift on my website that is an Akashic journey taking you into the Lemurian crystalline temples of healing. So it's very soothing. If you feel heavy with everything happening in the world right now, or you just want a little nice healing treatment, you're going to really enjoy this journey. So you can get it at the link below. And if you're new to me, my name's Aly Wilkins. Again, I'm an oracle, I'm a seer. I work with the ancient feminine frequencies And I really support people in activating their soul blueprint. So through all of the different forms of magic that I offer, all of that really supports you really stepping into your truest design based on your soul blueprint. So that's what I help people with. And I have courses and mentorship, and I also do one-off Akashic record readings. If you just want to meet with me once, you can do that. And you can find all of that at alywilkins.com. But if you enjoyed this topic, please subscribe to the channel and you'll find a lot more of that here. So anyways, thank you so much for spending an hour or so with me today. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.